Hi everyone, Matt from Useful Charts here. Today I'm going to show you how to do a 23andMe DNA test. I'm going to show you how to take the sample, and then I'm going to show you an example of the results page and show you what you can expect to find there and what kind of information you get and how to use that information to learn something about your family history. The first thing you need to do is order one of these kits. There's a link in the description that you can use to go to the website. And it depends on which country you are in. In Canada, there's an option to get some health information in addition to the ancestry information. But in this video, we're just going to be talking about the ancestry portion. So once you order the kit, they will send it in the mail and it'll come to you like this. Again, this is the Canadian version, so that's why there's French on there as well. I think in the America, you will only get it in English. So when you get this box, be careful opening it because you need to keep this box because you're going to use it to return the sample to them. They already have a return label ready for you. So we open the box. And first of all, there's a little welcome message. Make sure you keep this card. They give you a little space to write down the ID number in case something happens and it gets lost. So you can write down the ID number here. I'll show you where that is and keep this card for future reference. And then inside the box is another little box, a plastic box. And inside here we have the instructions, and the first thing they tell you to do is to register the kit. So go to the website and register the kit. You'll need to find the serial number. Again, I'll show you that in a second. So there's a little biohazard bag where the sample's going to go in the end. Now notice there's a little piece of paper in here. You have to keep that in the bag. That helps keep the sample fresh, so don't throw that away. And then we have the test tube itself, and this is just the cap. We'll get to that in a moment. On the side of the tube here is the registration number, and you're going to need that when you register at that website, and then you can also write that number down on your card here for your own reference. Okay, so this is the tube that you're going to use to collect your sample. Now, don't be afraid, you don't have to fill up this whole tube with your saliva. You can see here, you're actually going to fill from this dotted line to the solid line. So just a little bit of your saliva is what you're going to do. Now, the important thing is you cannot eat for 30 minutes before you do this. So the best thing to do is to do it when you wake up in the morning. Don't worry if your breath is horrible. No one's going to judge you. Don't worry about it. The best time to do it because there's no food or anything in your mouth. Also, don't brush your teeth. Just start collecting the sample right away. So they say the best thing you can do is just sit down, think about something tasty that you like to eat. So your mouth will start to water, some saliva will come, and you spit into the tube. Now you're probably going to have to spit several times. So take your time, sit, watch some TV, get lots of saliva going in your mouth, spit, wait, repeat, repeat. And you keep doing that until it fills up to this line. If there's bubbles, make sure that it's fully liquid to up to this line. The bubbles don't count, so the bubbles might go up even more than that. Okay, so you have your saliva in the tube now. The next thing you do is you close this lid. Now make sure you don't do this until you're done and ready, because inside the top is this special liquid that's going to mix with the specimen. And when you close the lid, there's some little notches here that break open this seal, and then the liquid goes down into the tube and mixes with your saliva. So once you do that, you close it, the liquid will go down. Then you can take this top off and you use the little lid that they gave you. Okay, so now you have your saliva sample in here. Then you put it in the bag. again, make sure you keep that little piece of paper there, and you can put it back in the box. Again, make sure you got the number off of that. You need that to register. You can also write it down on this green piece of paper. If you don't get the number, you don't know which one is yours. So make sure you write down that number. Okay, so sample's ready to go. It's going to go back in there, and then it's going to go back inside the box. And they even give us a little sticker here that you can peel that off so that you can seal it nice and tight. And you can put the return address here, and its postage is already paid for. You go, you put this in any post office box, and it goes back to them. Then you wait. I think about 4 to 6 weeks, they'll send you an email saying your results are ready. So now let's go and look at what the results look like. So when you click the link in the email and enter your login details, you should end up on a landing page that looks something like this. If you don't, just click on the Ancestry tab and you should end up here. So right away, you're going to see a summary of your ancestry composition. So here you can see that I got 46.8% French and German, 32% British and Irish, and 1% Spanish and Portuguese. Now this is fairly close to what I was expecting. I've done quite a bit of research into my family tree, and I know that most of the branches came to Canada from Germany in about the year 1750. So I was expecting German to come up number one, and it did. I know that my maternal grandmother's side of the family came from Ireland, so I was expecting at least 25% Irish, and it looks like I ended up with more than that. There must be some other British or Irish individuals that intermarried into the other branches of my family. I do know that I had a distant ancestor who was a Sephardic Jew. Sephardic Jews come from Spain or Portugal, so this 1% must be related to that ancestor. And you'll notice that these percentages don't add up to 100%, and I'll explain that in just a moment. So let's look at the more detailed report. So we click here, View Your Ancestry Composition, and it takes us to a map and a table here on the left that breaks things down further. So my ancestry is 100% European, and that's why you only see this part of the map colored. If you have ancestry from other parts of the world, you're going to see those light up in color, and they'll be shown over here as well. So again, we see French and German up here at the top, followed by British and Irish. Due to my own research, I know that this is probably mostly German, and this is probably mostly Irish. And here's a few results I wasn't necessarily expecting. I've got a tiny bit of Scandinavian and a tiny bit of Sardinian. But I want to point out these sections here at the bottom broadly. So it looks as though 14.8% they call broadly Northwestern European. Now, Northwestern Europe is quite a large portion here. So basically what that means is those portions of my DNA, they weren't able to pinpoint it any better than just this very broad category. So it's likely that this part of my DNA probably fits back up here in the German, and that's why this number's a little lower than I had been expecting, but if you add this percentage into there, it bumps it up. Now you can go into a little bit more detail. If you click on these down arrows and then View Report, this is going to explore the French and German ancestry a little bit more. And if we click here on Germany, it actually shows me the two regions where it predicts that my ancestors would have come from. And based on my own research, I know that a lot of my family did come from this area here, so this is to be expected. Not quite sure about this, but it's all very interesting. And if we click on France, it does kind of the same thing here. So this makes sense because I had ancestors in this area here Not too sure about this, but again, it's all very interesting. Now I'm going to go back to the ancestry composition page and show you all the tested populations that 23andMe tests. So this will give you a better idea of what your results might contain. Now, I should point out a very important fact at this point. The more people that take the 23andMe test, the more accurate these results will get. So even if you do it now, if you check your results again after 1 year or 2 years, you might actually see that your results have changed slightly and they've become even more accurate. Initially, 23andMe mostly had some great information for those with European ancestry. But as more and more people take the test, you'll see here in a moment that they're able to break down into a lot more categories as well. So I'm just going to scroll down here through the list so you can see the various countries and parts of the world that they are able to detect if you did have ancestors from those areas. So these are all the various European areas. You can see there's a lot of Eastern European areas as well. Also, if your ancestors were Ashkenazi Jewish, that's going to come up here. And we can go down and see lots of other European areas as well, and then the big broadly sections. But let me show you the rest of the world as well, because that might apply to you. So if you are from Asia or you have Native American ancestors, 23andMe will detect Chinese ancestry, Filipino, Indonesian, and you can see that it can actually even break it down a little bit, Japanese, Korean. And then for Native American, you can notice that it's mostly Central American and South American. So if you're Native American from the US or First Nations Canadian, I believe that's just going to show up as a broadly Native American category. So let's keep going here. You can see that Fiji has its own category. South Asian, it's going to be able to tell the difference between Indian and Sri Lankan and so forth. Then it's got a big section for Sub-Saharan African. So if you're African American, you might see some results here, and you will be able to tell what part of Africa your ancestors came from. So like I said, this section is going to get even more detailed in future as more and more people take the test. Keep going down here. You then get to the Middle Eastern section, which includes North Africa, much of the Arab world. Western Asia here is basically the Middle East. And then, of course, there's a category here at the bottom for unassigned, and that means they just can't pinpoint that part of your DNA. You'll notice here that there's a button where you can download the raw data. This is important because there are several sites that allow you to upload the information, and they will give you their interpretation of the results, as well as potentially link you to family members. So for example, the site MyHeritage allows you to upload your DNA. You don't have to do the DNA test through them. If you've done it through 23andMe, you can upload your data there and use their database to find relatives. I'll note that ancestry.com does not allow you to do that. They require you to take their test. So I'm going to go back up here to the top, and we'll go back to the main ancestry page and see what else we can learn. If one of your primary interests is in meeting potential relatives, you're going to find this section very interesting. If we click on Find Your Matches, it's going to give us a list of potential relatives. Now let me point out that your results don't automatically become public. You can opt in or opt out of sharing with others so that they can find you. If you opt out, nobody's going to see you on their result page. If you opt in, cousins and other relatives can find you. So for privacy purposes, I've blocked the names of my relatives here. You can see that one of my sons took the test, so he shares about 50% of my DNA, which is to be expected. And then I've got 2 second cousins. It shows here the amount of DNA we share, the amount of segments in our DNA, and then a bunch of second to third cousins. And if you keep going down, it'll go to fourth and fifth and so forth. So using this page, you can click on any one of those individuals, and it gives you the ability to message them and to look at their ancestry in more detail. Let's go back to the main ancestry page. There's a section here on Neanderthal ancestry that's kind of fun. It says here that I have 284 Neanderthal variants, and that is more than 64% of 23andMe customers. So I'm a little bit more Neanderthal than average. And in all of these sections that we're looking at, you can get a bunch of additional information. It'll explain everything in more detail to you. But we'll go back to the main page and see what else you get. The final thing is haplogroups. I'll do a separate video on haplogroups in the future explaining what those are and why they're important to your ancestry. But for now, know that if you are female, you are only going to get a maternal haplogroup result. If you're male, you're going to get a maternal and a paternal. If you're female, you can find out your paternal haplogroup through a male relative. Basically, what a maternal haplogroup is, this is not representing your entire maternal side of the family. This is strictly giving information about your mother's 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 mother and so forth, going back strictly mother to mother to mother to mother as far back as you can go. It's going to tell you where that line originally came from. And the same thing with the paternal haplogroup. This is not information about your father's side of the family in general. This is strictly your father's 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 father, all the way back as far as they can go. Where did that line come from? So keep in mind that these are only 2 lines out of thousands in your family tree. So if you look at your paternal haplogroup and it says you came from such and such part of the world, that doesn't mean that all your ancestors came from there. It just means that your father's father's father did. So if we click here, it tells me that my paternal haplogroup is RZ156. And from other research, I know that this is a subdivision of R1b, which is nothing too fancy because it happens to be the most common paternal haplogroup for those with Western European ancestry. I think almost 50% of people from Western Europe are going to get this result. But it does give you some interesting information about the timeline of that particular line. And I will point out this here. It says you share a paternal line ancestor with King Louis the 16th. Now, a lot of people misunderstand this. They think, oh, wow, I'm closely related to the House of Bourbon and the French monarchy. Or they say that they're a descendant of King Louis. No, that's not what this means. It means that King Louis and I, and what it doesn't say is half of Western Europe, all share a common ancestor from 10,000 years ago. So don't get too excited about that. I will note that I am planning to do a video soon about how to find royal ancestors. So if you're interested in that, you'll want to check out that video. So let's go back up to the top, and the last thing I'll show you is the maternal haplogroup. So it says here my maternal haplogroup is U4A. And if you Google haplogroup U4A, you're going to get lots more information about that. And again, we get a nice little timeline here that explains more information. And all of these pages that we've been looking at give you lots of references where you can research in more detail. And there's also, really good explanations of how they get all this information. So that was just a quick look at how to do the 23andMe test and what kind of information you can get from it. I find it is helpful in confirming whether the research that you've done is accurate. And it also puts you in touch with some relatives that might be able to help with certain parts of your family tree that you're having trouble with. If you're interested in taking the 23andMe test, I've put a link in the description that you can use. If you find the topic of DNA testing interesting and you want to learn more, let me know in the comments. If people are interested, I could also do a video about the Ancestry DNA kit and some of the other companies that are out there. Thanks for watching.